Alright folks, I wanted to try making this video again. For whatever reason, this has been a really tricky video to try and make in a way that satisfies me. I tried making a video before on it and I just wasn't happy with it. It sounded too grumpy and judgmental, and I wanted to see if there was any possible way I could just make a relaxed video on this and demystify this idea of intelligent life on other planets, aliens. Because, see, the thing is, for me, it's not mystical at all. To me, it just seems like really logical and almost to the point of being boring. But I also have to understand that for a lot of people, the idea of aliens seems mystical and wondrous. It's like, oh my God, like it's almost hard to even imagine. And I have to understand that. And instead of being judgmental about it and saying, what's there to wonder about? It's such a common sense thing. Instead of doing that, because that really gets you nowhere, how can I break this down in a simple way, just to sort of outline how instead of being this mystical, wondrous thing, it's actually pretty plain and boring and common sense. This is not going to be a smooth video because I had to write this stuff down. There is no way for me to get through these basic points without rambling on too much. So let's just start off with the beginning. And why am I making this video? Because I guess anybody who knows me personally kind of, I've the idea of I'm always talking about the universe, existence, life on other planets. So I guess people know me as that type of person. So, and for whatever reason, the last little while, specifically since Bob Lazar was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and every time I talk to somebody now, they're like, Tony, where are the aliens? Is Bob Lazar telling the truth? Is it real? Well, let's take Bob Lazar out of this equation, because whether Bob Lazar is telling the truth or not really doesn't matter at all. That doesn't take away. Like, if he wasn't telling the truth, it's not like all of a sudden now it's like, well, I guess alien life is not out there. His position is really irrelevant in the big picture of things. So let's ignore, but I just explained that just to sort of get you an idea of why I keep getting asked this question now. And I have to say, like I said, the few responses I've had have been a little too judgmental and too grumpy, and I wanted to just break it down in layers. Okay, so this demystifying aliens. The question, of course, people have is, but can they really exist? You really think there's aliens out there? Because it sounds really crazy. Like, imagine seeing an alien, right? It sounds mind-blowing. But let's ignore everything you've heard, everything you've read, whatever's been told to us. Let's just break it down simply and think about this. A simple question. What's more probable, right? That we're the only ones in this entire universe? Are we the only ones in this entire universe? Or that we're not, right? That's the first thing. Right? Because when you think, well, if it's possible for us to exist, right, in this universe, if we're possible, the natural assumption would be that it's probably possible in other planets in the universe, right? So that's actually more logical and practical. So you're not really dreaming up some fantasy, right? So when you think, can they really exist? What's more probable? That we're the only ones in this entire universe, or that there's most likely, since we're possible, there's life out there, right? So you think, oh, so when you ask the question, can they really exist? Even that first point seems much more logical to assume. Remember, all of these that we're going through are assumptions because we don't know. Do we know for sure they're out there? No, unless you have first-hand contact. But these are reasonable assumptions. So the assumption that they're most likely out there, that we're not the only ones, is much more reasonable than to think that we're the only ones in this entire universe, right? Okay, there you go. That's one level of demystifying it. That's a huge part. That might be the number one reason for it to not be that mystical. Now let's go to a reason number 2 and 3. Reason number 2 that I've heard talked about a lot is, yeah, but Tony, even if they're out there, do you realize how big the universe is? Even if they're out there, do you know, even if they traveled at the speed of light, which is the maximum speed you can travel, do you know how long it would take for them to reach us? So even if they're out there, it's almost like they don't even exist, because what's the point? They would never reach us. It's so far away. Now see, if you take that for what it is and you're a very scientific person, you might just think, well, yeah, that makes logical sense, right? The universe is so vast that even if they traveled really, really fast, it would take them so long that it's almost like irrelevant that they're even there. Now, just because something makes scientific sense to us now in a practical way, you have to understand that science constantly changes when it gets new data. So what we might think is really beyond our scope right now, in 100 years, in 1,000 years, in 10,000 years, our science will change based on the new data we have. So yes, in the traditional sense now, as far as how we understand reality and traveling through our universe, we're limited by the speed of light. So when you think about the universe being so vast, even if you're on a spaceship and you're traveling super fast, it takes so long to reach us, it would be like almost like, what's the point, right? But can you contemplate an idea where an intelligent civilization living on another planet is so advanced, like maybe 500,000 years more advanced than we are, or 1,000,000 years? Let's just make an assumption. Whatever number you want to put, just something way, way, way more advanced than us. Can you contemplate a possibility that maybe they figured out a way to travel from point A to point B instantly? So not traveling at light speed for hundreds and thousands of years, but that they can just go from point A to point B instantly. That's the thing. Can you contemplate that as a possibility? Because it's hard to do it, because it might not make sense with the science we understand now. I mean, there's theories out there, but it hasn't been proven, because that's the thing. When you don't have provable science, it's kind of hard for us to really contemplate it too much, because we've been really put in a way where it's you get ridiculed and mocked. There's that term pseudoscience, and the second you contemplate something, pseudoscience, so it's sometimes people get scared to even contemplate ideas that haven't been 100% proven by science, because you sound wacky. But if you can contemplate that an intelligent civilization has figured out new ways of travel that are not limited by the speed of light, then it's completely possible that they could just simply go from point A to point B instantly, right? That's the thing, the ability to contemplate things that we might not fully understand now, right? So this whole idea of the universe is too big, it would take too long. You never know. They could have new ways of travel. That's all. You never know, they could have new ways of travel that's far beyond what you can imagine. Now, the other thing I hear a lot is some people like to say the word Fermi paradox. Oh, yeah, but how about the Fermi paradox? This idea is there's no way they're out there, because if they're out there, how come we don't see them? Where are they if they're out there? Now, that one is sort of a silly one to me, because, see, a lot of these arguments seem pretty technical, pretty legitimate, but when you look at them psychologically, they don't make much sense. Because this idea is, how do we treat ancient tribes living in the Amazon? There's an ancient tribe living in the Amazon that has never been in contact with modern human beings. Ever. They're living in the Amazon, a tribe of people. They have never been in contact with modern human beings ever. How do we treat them? Do we go there, say hello, and start dancing around? No, we don't. We let them be. This idea that, well, how come how come they haven't landed on the white? How come we don't see them? They're not landing in your backyard saying hello. They haven't greeted us. So clearly they're not out there, right? Because if they're out there, we would have seen them. But like I said, look how we treat other civilizations, ancient tribes. You naturally let them be, right? Because you don't interrupt a civilization like that. You just don't do that. So it's like this idea of, so like we're doing it right now, but we think that another life form would act differently. They would probably act in the same way, right? Makes much more sense. We see this ancient tribe in the Amazon. We know instinctively that you can't just go in there and just say hello. You want to see what an iPhone looks like? You gotta let them be, right? You gotta let them be until you reach a certain balance and level of understanding. Otherwise, you're really interrupting what's going on over there. So this Fermi paradox has never made sense to me, because they wouldn't just like dance around and say hello. We wouldn't see them. And you think, yeah, but we'd see them in space. We look and see them. Again, can you contemplate an idea where their technology is, even if they have spaceships that they're traveling on, maybe they have a way to just not be detected? That's all you have to do, just contemplate that simple idea. If their technology is 1 million years more advanced, maybe they have ways to not be detectable. That's all you got to do, just simply contemplate something. And then when you realize that, it's not that mystical anymore. Yeah, so the Fermi paradox one, which is one of the main arguments I hear, that, because like if somebody's wondering, if they're mystified by this idea of aliens, are they out there? And then somebody really logical says, no, man, they're not out there. Haven't you heard of the Fermi paradox? If they were out there, we would have seen them. And then they're, oh, okay, I guess. Like I said, they wouldn't just dance around and say hello. We don't do that, and they probably wouldn't do that. Now, the next question I get a lot is, well, if they exist, then are they good or are they bad? Are aliens bad or good? That's another big question. That one is also a bit silly, because it would be like asking, are humans bad or good? Right? If you were to say, are humans bad or good, which one would you say? Right? Imagine an intelligent civilization came down, observed us from a distance, the way we do with the Amazon tribes, and they had to write back to headquarters and describe us. Are we good? Are we bad? Well, look at us, what we do. We blow ourselves up. We're violent to each other. So you can easily say, oh, they're bad. But we also do beautiful things. We help each other out in crisis. We're there for each other. We have the capacity to love each other. So we're both. We have the capacity to love, and we have the capacity to hate. So you can't just say, well, this civilization, Earthlings are bad, they're good. Awareness, consciousness, the state of being is a more complex than that good, bad. Generally speaking, as a being, you're capable of many different things. So to say, are they good or bad? The spectrum of good or bad, or however you want to judge that, is very vast, right? So are they good and bad? Generally speaking, you meet an individual, whether it's a human, whether it's an entity from another planet, and you have to base that on your own intuition when you meet them. I guess you just don't really know, do you? You would assume logically that the spectrum of good and bad is very vast and it exists everywhere in the universe. So to make a simple judgment as good and bad is doesn't really get you anywhere, right? So the spectrum is probably very broad. Now the other question you get is, okay, so if they're out there, Tony, have they ever visited us? Because you always hear stuff like Bob Lazar on the Joe Rogan podcast, and not just him, this idea of secret governments hiding recovered alien spacecrafts, reverse engineering. Have they ever visited us? Again, now I know it sounds mystical and kind of crazy, because it's just the idea of imagining an alien civilization visiting us sounds almost unimaginable because it's so crazy. But when you break it down logically again and you think, okay, well, if they're out there and some of these civilizations might be a million years more advanced than us, for them finding Earth and visiting us really wouldn't be that difficult, right? So, imagine us, the human race, a million years into the future. What exactly would we be doing? The exact same thing. What do you do as an advanced civilization, right? You travel the universe and explore it. That's the only thing you would do as an advanced civilization. It's only natural, right? I mean, beings, whether they're human beings or any type of being, I would assume they're explorers at heart, I mean, that's how we colonized the entire world. We explored. We naturally explore. So it doesn't make logical sense to think that we would just stop at Earth. We've explored all of Earth. We've discovered all the places to discover on Earth, and all of a sudden we're good, right? So if we, as a species, we were a million years more advanced, we would naturally be exploring the universe and finding new planets, new civilizations. So wouldn't they be doing the same thing? It's only logical to assume, right? Now, do we know for sure whether they have visited us? Of course not. But that, right, unless you have first-hand knowledge, you wouldn't know. But the real question is, if they have visited us, would it be that surprising? That's the thing. So this idea of Bob Lazar, is he telling the truth? Well, like I said, Bob Lazar is irrelevant because even if he wasn't telling the truth, it's not like all of a sudden now you're like, well, I guess they've never visited us, right? Because the idea is whether Bob Lazar or anyone else who's come out saying that, yeah, we've worked on secret alien projects and we have the recovered spacecraft and we have this, the idea is, would it be that surprising? So ignore everyone who's talked about it. Just think about it logically. If they're a million years more advanced, would it be that surprising if they were able to find Earth and visit us, right? Because like I said, like us with the Amazon tribe, if they visit us, they're not going to dance around and say hello. They visit us, they inspect, they do some things. It's going to be pretty secret. They're not going to make themselves too openly visible. Because this other idea is, well, no way, because if they ever visited us, we would know. We wouldn't. That's the thing, we wouldn't. Because the way we observe the Amazon tribe, they don't know. We observe them, we've taken pictures, they don't know. They might suspect, they might be suspicious, imagine someone in their tribe going, I think I saw something flying over the top. It was a helicopter taking pictures of them, but they don't even have a concept of what that is. So it's hard for them. If somebody said that, people in their tribe are probably thinking, sure, buddy, yeah, you saw something flying in the sky and taking, they have no concept of something flying in the sky and taking pictures of them and observing them. So have they ever visited us? Unless you have firsthand knowledge, experience, we don't know, but it's a very reasonable assumption, and it wouldn't be surprising if they have. Right? That's it. So let's see what else I have here. Okay, so have they ever visited us? I said it wouldn't be too surprising if you really think about it. So after all that, breaking that down, you're basically left with a few overwhelming probabilities, right? This is what you're left with after really just contemplating it and demystifying it a bit. So what are these overwhelming probabilities you're left with? Well, the odds are they're out there. It's very unlikely it's just us, right? Now remember, it's not technically impossible, but it's highly, almost unimaginably improbable for it to be just us. So the logical assumption would be that we're not alone, right? That's one of the first overwhelming probabilities. The logical assumption is we're most likely not alone. So the second logical assumption is that if they're super advanced, they can find Earth and reach us no problem. They've overcome the limitations of space travel, and they can just simply go from point A to point B. They might have ways of doing that we just don't understand. It's very likely. The third assumption is if they found us, it's only logical that they'd be curious about us, but it would also most likely be kept secret and quiet, like I said, the way we do with the ancient Amazon tribe. So they're not just going to walk in and say hello. That's another overwhelming thing that we've really realized so far. So the last question is, this is the big question. The last question is, how long before they're allowed to say hello? When is it okay for them to finally make it open? Come on, Tony, if they're out there and you've made these logical arguments for it, when do they finally say hello? Right? That's the big question. And that answer is most likely when we realize that we're all one. That's when. When we realize we're all one, that's when they'll come out in the open. When we realize that everything in the universe is connected and that there is no real separation between you and I and any other race, that's when we'll probably say hello. And you wonder, why is this so important to realize? Well, because when we realize that everything in the universe is connected and we're all one, we stop blowing ourselves up. It's really just as simple as that. We stop blowing ourselves up. We become a peaceful, advanced society able to be part of the universe. Because until then, we are really nothing more than wild animals blowing ourselves up. We're not ready for connection to the entire universe. Not yet. It's absolutely necessary to realize that we're all one and everything is, it's not me against you, because that's the mentality of domination and protection. Like, imagine it this way. These civilizations would be super advanced. And with super advanced civilizations comes super advanced technologies. And if those types of technologies landed in our hands, we would most likely use it to blow ourselves up. It's really as simple as that. So maturing to a state of peace and oneness is absolutely vital to get your universal traveling card. Seems reasonable, right? Now, keep in mind, as a society, on a positive note, us evolving towards closer for us getting this universal traveling card is we've made incredible progress in the past 200 years. Mind-blowing. When you really think about us a few hundred years ago, human slavery, the oppression of almost every minority imaginable, women's rights, equality, just in general learning to be more loving and accepting of each other. We've made huge, huge progress, incredible progress in the past few hundred years. And, you know, when it comes to us where we are now, we're at that breaking point where we really have two choices when it comes to becoming an advanced society. You know, we're either gonna blow ourselves up, right? Or we're gonna evolve past that primal survival state of fear and domination and enter a world where all is one. It's really simple as that. So we're at that breaking point where we really have two choices. We either blow ourselves up or we finally break past that survival, primal fear domination state that we're in. And when that happens, they will come say hello and the mystery will finally be over. And it's really as simple as that. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.